Hello my beautiful friends. So today is Tuesday, January 12th, and I am here to sit down and do a December wrap up for you. This video is a little bit delayed, but I'm excited to let you guys know about the books that I read in December. It was the last month of 2020, obviously, and it was surprisingly a really good reading month. So yeah, let's go ahead and get into this video so it is not super long. Also, if there's a glare on my glasses, which I feel like is going to be inevitable, I do apologize, but they're cute, so does it make up for it? The first book that I ended up reading in December was actually a book club read, and is a book club on Instagram that I very infrequently participate in. It's called the Goodreads Book Club. I decided to go ahead and read this book because I heard that it was really good and it was a quick read. And so the book was Red at the Bone by Jacqueline Woodson. So I guess to kind of go quickly through the synopsis from what I can remember, there's not really a huge plot, to be honest. It's really a story of a family navigating through life as a family. There's a lot about generational trauma that is passed down. There's a lot about like coming of age and self-realization, realizing who you are as a person after having children, especially specifically having children at a young age. There were a lot of parallels being drawn between the mother and the daughter in the story, because when you start out the book, you are watching the daughter having kind of it wasn't like a quinceañera, it wasn't like a sweet 16, but it was kind of like a ceremony, a coming of age ceremony, I guess, in their family. And previously the mother had been supposed to have this coming of age kind of ceremony, and she was actually pregnant with her daughter and wasn't able to do that. And so being able to see the connections and parallels between both of their, you know, who they are as people, but also being able to see the differences because of certain decisions that they made. It's very interesting to be able to see that. It was a really interesting look at a mother who was mothering in the best way that she knew how. She had a child at such a young age, and she felt a huge sense of duty to have this child and to bring this life into the world, but it didn't really extend beyond that point. Obviously, she has a very distant, very different relationship with her child than I think we normally think of mothers having with their children. And I don't even necessarily think that it's a bad thing, because she was able to have the opportunity to go to college and to be able to explore, you know, herself and her life. And yes, obviously you have a lot of resentment from the child because they are not given the attention and the love that they really deserve. But then if it was the opposite way around, she had been a very involved mother at that time in her life, she would have been sacrificing her entire life, and there would have been a resentment from her towards her daughter. So I can definitely see where it's a very, very challenging, difficult situation, and the way that the author really portrayed that and expressed how each of the characters are feeling in each of their roles, because it was not only from their perspectives, it was also from the father, it was also from the mother's father, her parents, and just about their whole experience, not only going through having a young daughter who ends up being pregnant, but also just being Black in America. Making decisions that will make it so your future children or your children's children won't have to do the same things or go down the same paths that you necessarily did. And I feel like that was a huge part of the mother's love for her daughter, was that she was showing love for herself, even though it definitely might have been seen as selfish in a lot of different ways and to a lot of different people. I don't know, I feel like once her daughter gets to the age that her mother is I feel like she will understand, and yeah, hopefully be able to understand and empathize with having to make such a challenging decision at such a young age. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. I very much enjoyed it. So the next book was a pretty quick read. I've heard so many people talking about it for the longest time, and I was really excited to read it, and it is Heartstopper, Volume 1. If you don't know anything about this is a beautiful queer love story. It is the most adorable coming of age, coming out, like coming into your own sexuality and who you are as a person story. And I'm so excited to read more of it because I've heard that there are a lot of different topics that this author touches on in these graphic novels, and I'm just really excited to read them. I would love to buy them because they're so beautiful, and I would love to have them on my bookshelf, but we'll see. It was so just like healing to my soul, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. It just really got me in the feelings of like being a teen and having a crush on somebody and like coming to that realization and then like realizing that they also have a crush on you. Like it's like the best feeling in the world, and I very much enjoyed it. The next book that I read was The Queen of Nothing, which is the last book in the Folk of Air series by Holly Black. This wraps up the series, obviously. So where the last book left off was that she was in the human world. I won't get too much in depth about the actual plot because obviously I don't want to spoil anything. Last books in series can be like very hit or miss. And I've heard a lot of people saying that they didn't really like the ending of the series, and then a lot of people saying that they did really like the ending of the series. So I don't know. I felt like it was wrapped up in a really good way. I like happy endings, and spoiler alert, it does kind of have a happy ending. I know there's another book that's called like The King of Elfham and how he doesn't like stories or something like that, how he came to hate stories or something. I don't know. And I know a lot of people are reading that. So I might read that, but I'm kind of at this point where I'm like, I kind of like where it ended, and I'm not sure if I want to read anymore. There were certain times that I was expecting for it to turn out one way, and then it didn't turn out that way, and I'm glad that I was able to get those feelings and it wasn't like super predictable, even though it could have been told in a way that was extremely predictable and very boring, and I wouldn't have enjoyed it at all. But it was told in a way that, to a certain extent, kept me on my toes, and I just enjoyed the story in general. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. As you know, I am very generous with my ratings, but I think that was well deserved. So the next book that I read in December was Grown by Tiffany D. Jackson, and this book I was highly recommended by very many people, specifically the author themselves. Grown was actually on my list of holds from the library, and it became available. I was gonna read it in like October. That's how long it took to become available, but I was gonna read it in October, Halloween time, because I knew that it was gonna be kind of like a YA thriller. But I am glad that I read it when I did. So basically this book is about a young girl. She's about 16 years old. Her name is Enchanted, and she is a wonderful, incredible singer. And she basically wants to be a singer. That's like her goal in life. And so she ends up going to this audition. A very famous R&B artist ends up being at this audition and sees her and kind of wants to start being her mentor. So I did talk about this a little bit in one of my vlogs. I'll put the link to it somewhere on the screen. So one thing that I really liked about the way that the story was formatted was that it started kind of at close to the end. And so throughout the story, you're getting glimpses of the present moment of what's going on. And then you're also getting mostly moments of how it got to that point. And so you're kind of like putting the pieces together, figuring out the mystery, solving the puzzle. And I really enjoy stories like that because it kind of makes me do the work of like solving the mystery. Basically, she wakes up in a hotel room, I believe, and there's a dead body and she is covered in blood, and she has no idea how she got there and what happened. So for me personally, and I feel like for a lot of people in general, there are a lot of heavy triggers in this book. But for me personally, it was extremely triggering because it was basically a story of grooming to me. This R&B singer, Corey Fields, is very, very much older than her. And he essentially starts grooming her. She is a very sweet, kind of naive young girl, and really takes his attention and just loves it, because who doesn't love attention, especially when you're a teenager and you feel like you're not really getting the love or support or just attention that you feel like you want or you deserve. You are kind of desperate for it. It wasn't like a thriller to me in the way that like certain other books are thrillers. It felt like something that could have very well happened to me. And I've definitely been in grooming situations as I was growing up as a child. So reading the text messages that he would send her, and the phone calls, and just like everything, and the way that she would see it in her young, impressionable, naive eyes, and the reality of the fact that this is a grown man talking to a 16-year-old girl in this way. It was just gross, and it's something that has kind of been reoccurring. That's been coming up for me. This is kind of going off on a tangent, but I did watch a show called The Wilds, and this came up in that show as well, where a guy was essentially grooming her, taking advantage of someone who was very much younger than him, a minor. And whenever something repeatedly comes up for me in my life, I know that it's something that I need to address and work through and figure out what it is that I need to process from the situation. So all this being said, the story really resonated with me in kind of the worst possible way, but I think it's a really important story to hear about and know that it's not just a story, know that it's very real, and not just in the setting of like being a celebrity or being around famous people or whatever, but it's like an everyday thing. It's a life thing that can very well happen, and grown-ass men should not be talking to children. Neither should grown-ass women. No grown-ass person should be talking to a child. Kind of a lot like the other one that I can't remember the name was. What was it? When No One Is Watching. So they're very similar to me in the way that they're thrillers that talk about things that are very real, and that's what makes them scary, not necessarily that there's anything kind of supernatural that's happening. I think these stories are very important, and I don't want people who don't necessarily like thrillers to be turned off by the fact that it's marketed as a thriller, because again, it is a YA thriller, so it's not going to be anything too insane. So I was able to handle it, but like I said, there are triggering topics that are talked about in these stories. But like I said, in my 21 books of 2021, I am really excited to read more books by Timothy D. Jackson, because I just really liked the way that she told this story. The next book was Red, White, and Royal Blue. It took me a minute to like get into this book, but once I did, man, I sure did. One thing that I noticed when I was looking at reviews of it, because I tend to look at reviews after I end up reading the book, was that a lot of people were complaining about it being really political. But the book is about a first son of the United States. So it's kind of like an alternate universe where who won the election 4 years ago didn't win the election 4 years ago. And kind of like the ideal situation. We have a woman for president, which is just, yes, I love it. I love to see it. We love to see it. And basically we're following the story of the son. And we're following his story along with the Prince of England. And so when I was reading reviews about it being too political, I'm like, but he's the first son and he's the prince. How could you not know that it was going to be somewhat political? I don't know. I didn't really find it super political because I would have probably found that really boring, to be honest. There was so much pining in this book. There was a bit of like an insta-love situation, I will admit, and I did not mind it. I did not mind it at all because the rest of the time there was so much pining and like I couldn't handle it because they were like in different places and like they couldn't really be together. They couldn't like openly be together. Is this a spoiler? No, it literally shows them on the cover, but it wasn't just about their relationship though. It was also about the different things that they were dealing with on their own and how they kind of dealt with that together. So like the prince had his own shit that he was going through and the first son had his own shit that he was going through, and they both had really supportive sisters, for one, which made me really happy inside. There were definitely some steamy parts and I wasn't mad, you know? I wasn't mad at all. And I enjoyed living in that alternate universe for the small amount of time that I did. Because, well, we know what the real universe is like. So the next book was a classic, which I was really excited about, and it was The Turn of the Screw by Henry James. I think I gave this like 3.75 out of 5 stars. This book is kind of confusing, and maybe it's just because I'm not really used to reading classics, or maybe it was just the writing style of the book. I felt like it was kind of made to be confusing. I went into this book kind of knowing what it was about, and kind of knowing what the point was that I was supposed to be getting from it. So basically there is a governess who goes to this manor, sirens, a governess who goes to this manor to take care of these beautiful, perfect little children. And of course, they're not as perfect as they may seem. And basically it's just a spiral, a cycle of paranoia. She's spiraling, she's losing it. She's like, I don't know what's real, I don't know what isn't. And we're basically left to figure out whether the reality that she was telling us was reality or whether it wasn't. And I like that. You know, I like abstract things. I like to, you know, come up with things myself and figure out things on my own, you know? I enjoy that. But it just, to me, it read very much like I didn't believe her for shit. I didn't believe her for 1 second. I was like, why are you jumping to these conclusions? Like it doesn't even make any sense to go from here to here. Like, how did you get over there when you were over here? Like, it didn't make any logical sense to me. I had so many theories of her, like, I don't know. I thought that she was like a ghost or something. I was like, she's trying to kill these kids, or like, I don't know what's going on. I still don't really know what happened at the end. I know what happened, but like I don't. It was written in a way that was a lot of words to describe things. And it wasn't really necessary to have that many words, in my personal opinion. So like I had to read things over and over sometimes in order to understand what they were actually trying to say. Just like, say what you mean what you say. It was interesting. It wasn't bad enough for me to give it like anything lower than what I did give it, but like I just left it feeling like, really? Like that was pointless, and I just really wanted it to be over while I was reading it. The next book I actually listened to on audiobook. It is Atomic Habits by James Clear. Basically, this is about like creating good habits and making habits that you can keep. The book was really about how to accomplish bigger goals, I feel like, by making smaller habits and things that you could actually accomplish in order to get to that big thing. And like, I know this. I've heard this from so many different people in so many different ways, but it's always nice to hear it in a different way and have it resonate differently, if that makes sense. So yeah, this is definitely going to be something that I take into the future and into 2021 with just like creating better systems for myself in order to accomplish the things that I want to accomplish, because there's a lot of things that I want to do. It's easy to get overwhelmed by all of the things that I want to do. So breaking down everything into like smaller bite-sized things that will create a habit that feels like challenging but not overwhelming is really important for me, because I tend to take on everything at once and then I get overwhelmed and then I get tired and exhausted and burnt out, and then I'm like, well, I guess I'm not gonna do anything. And I'm pretty sure I'm gonna buy the physical copy of this book because I would like to just have it to highlight things and to also like read over again if I would like to do so. My Goodreads app is not like processing or like adding the Avatar, The Last Airbender graphic novels or comics to my list. It added the last one that I read, which was The Promise Part 3. And I don't really remember which ones I read in December. I think I read all 3 in December, but I don't really remember. So essentially there's like part 1, part 2, part 3. So there's The Search, and then there's 3 books in that kind of series, and then there's The Promise, and there's 3 books in that, and then there's The Rift, which there's 3 books in that. I just started The Rift, and then I think I'm pretty sure I read The Promise and The Search in December. And I really enjoyed it. I absolutely love Avatar: The Last Airbender. It's one of my favorite series. Luna actually watched it with us for the first time this past year, so that was really nice. And I'm actually watching Legend of Korra kind of like sporadically right now because I have never watched it before. I did read those graphic novels or comics, and they were really good. I get through them really quickly. I'm pretty sure I gave all of them 5 out of 5 stars because I just love that shit. It makes me happy inside. I would love to buy all of them because I would just enjoy that, but we'll see about that. I love being able to read what happened after the TV show ended. That is it for this video. That is it for all of the books that I read in December of 2020. It was a really good reading month, surprisingly. All of my links are always down below, my Goodreads, Twitter, Instagram, all that jazz. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I'll see you guys in my next video. I hope you're having a beautiful day and finding joy wherever it is that you can. I love you.